Hey guys, Paul McClain, and welcome to the Monday morning wake up call. And I've got a special guest with me in the studio, my good buddy Trey Honeycutt.
Howdy.
Good to have you with us, brother.
Thanks for having me.
It's always good when you could fist bump somebody because they're live in the flesh, you know. But good to have you with me, man. And I'll tell you what, guys. Like every week, I sit back and I really do think about who can I have on that's going to bring as much value as possible to everybody that plugs into this podcast and it feeds them every single week. And dude, I could not think of anybody better than you, bro. Like your business is exploding. In fact, Trey was walking through the office and about everybody was like, man, dude, that podcast you do, I love it. You made such a big difference. And I get so much feedback, and you probably don't even know it because you're just running a million miles an hour building your business. But you know, your example, your voice, what you do, what you say, it matters a lot, man. And so it's helped the whole company, and I'm excited to have you on here for the next 30 minutes where everybody, as they kick off their Monday, I promise you, your Monday will be better listening to Trey. So we got some stuff to dig into. Before we do that, though, I want to remind you guys, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, hit the notifications on all that good stuff so you can be aware of the videos as they come out and be notified. Also share this. You know, I always say that everybody wants to make a difference in everybody's life. I think that by nature, inherently, we're called to do that. And sometimes just to share. I mean, I've shared some of the stuff you've done, Trey, which is why somebody's like, man, that made such a difference. And if I didn't share it, they wouldn't have seen it, you know? And so just share it. And also comment below. We do the drawing every single week where you could win $250 in lead credit. So make sure to put a comment. And if you have questions, if you have things you want covered, I love to read them, love to see them. I do read them every week, and love to figure out how I could best serve you as we go on forward week in and week out. And so with that said, man, I want to kind of talk about, you know, attitude. Like I think when I think of you, Trey, you've got such a great demeanor about yourself. I think of humble and hungry. I think of, you know, these kind of things. And I know that there's negatives in the business.
Yeah.
There's some lows in the business. And if we had a live audience, we'd be, hey, man, let's get a hallelujah. but that's the way it should be with business.
Right.
You know? It's like if there's a lot of benefits and things that you can reap, you better believe there's going to be some sacrifice and some things you don't like. But I think how people respond to the negative is probably the most important thing that leads them to an eventual great positive, in a win and a victory. Everybody kind of deals with these same, you know, things they're gonna happen. You know, chargebacks, no shows, getting going, struggles, the mental battle, doubt, disbelief. I mean, heck, I remember thinking after getting 4 people hang up on me, like, man, I've lost it. I've lost it. I've literally lost it. I'm not good anymore, you know? So everybody deals with these things.
Maybe I got lucky for 8 years.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I thought, you know? But talk about how do you deal with the negative in the business? Like, how do you handle that? And do you handle it differently now at the business that you've developed than you did in the beginning? And what's the differences of results and impact by those two different ways you've handled it, if that makes sense?
Well, in certain ways, I suppose I handle it differently. But, I mean, the foundation of this, from the very beginning, what I would always say is you have to have 2 things. You got to have a good sense of humor and a bad memory. So you just need to forget about stuff and laugh it off, and not take things too serious, and understand, you know, you get paid by the size of the problems that you solve. And so if you put the cans on the bottom and the bread on top, that's a small problem. You don't get paid a lot for that, bagging groceries, but you know, when you're dealing with people and you're building an agency and you're helping people with insurance, like, you're solving bigger problems, and the bigger the problems you solve, the more money you make. And so it's not always going to be, you know, peaches and roses. But if you can just keep the proper perspective, understand that it's never as good as you think it is, and it's never really as bad as you think it is either, that it'll always work out. You know, people, what happens is people way overestimate what they can accomplish in a week or 2, but they way underestimate what it'll look like a year or 2 down the road. And that's the thing that I tried to focus on early, and I really learned that from you, was just the idea that I can control what I do today, and it's like laying 1 brick at a time. As long as I can say to myself at the end of the day, if everybody did on the team what I did today, it would be a good day, then that was a good day. And I would focus on the things I could control, and then the next day I would go back and I'd be proactive, and I'd try to control those things too. And the things I couldn't control, I'd just laugh it off and forget about it. And I knew that over time that it had to work out. You know, it was a probability, it wasn't a possibility. And
That's good.
that was the main thing there. As far as changing, handling problems or looking at things differently today, one of the things I definitely had to adapt when I look back is not avoiding problems. So I was almost too passive about a lot of things as I went along. I didn't want to make mountains out of molehills, but there were definitely things that I should have paid attention to that, like I'll give an example. Then I'll use this on the podcast, and then I'll go back and my staff will be like, "Are you going to fire me?" No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Let me say, I gotta say two things, because dude, you've already covered so much, and I don't want anybody to miss it. When you say like things are not really as bad as they seem to be, like when they're going good, it's not as good as you think and not as bad as you think. Dude, I think it's such a big deal. Like, talking about when things are not going that good, endure it, because it's gonna be it'll get even better. Like you enduring it the right way, not shutting and shutting down and running away. Like, you're going to find something in that struggle or season of winter or whatever that's going to lead you to a much better summer. Like, you're not going to be able to hit these higher levels if you didn't endure. So endure it for the growth that's set before you because of the stretching and growth in it. And if it's going great, enjoy it. Enjoy it going great, because pretty soon you're going to have to go back to enduring. So enjoy it when it's going good and keep focusing on the disciplines and the daily activities. But there's a season of enjoying and enduring, but it's always a process. It doesn't stop. How do you stay emotionally stable within those two and don't get too crazy in enjoyment and crazy way off on the other side when you're trying to endure, but you're getting so negative and, man, this is frustrating and it needs to look better, it's got to look better, and this took place and that took place. How do you, while you're enduring, find the seed that's going to lead to opportunity and lead you to more success?
Well, there's two things with it that I think about. And, this is really just a series of ups and downs. And the way I looked at it was I'm constantly trying to get better with the ups so the downs don't last as long. And the other thing I was thinking about is in those seasons of doubt when I didn't feel like it was working, that wasn't happening. That was happening for my benefit. And it usually was happening for my benefit in the sense that other people were watching and they needed to see how I reacted to it. Like, I can't be over in the corner sucking my thumb talking about how bad it is, because I've been really blessed that see, that's why everybody needs to build a team. Because what happens is when you get kicked in the stomach in the business and you keep a good attitude, not everybody gets kicked in the stomach at the same time. Mm-hmm. So as the team was growing, like Joe was killing it, Steven was killing it, other people were doing really well. And if I wasn't doing well, as long as I didn't bring them down, it was still going to be okay. And so that was one of the ways that I learned how to navigate the emotional ups and downs. Is I just didn't want to be rain on somebody else's parade. And the other thing I would do, and I think this is important because I see this a lot, is like I would run from this comparison idea. Like, Dave Witchert does $14 million a week 2 weeks in. Like I didn't do that. So what I learned to do to not let that drag me down is I just celebrate everybody's success.
That's good.
I would just, hey, great job. I'm really actually am excited for you. And it wasn't a game. It wasn't like a trick. It was like, I'm genuinely excited for you. Like, there's more than enough people for all of us to win. FFL's still really small. The race is to 15,000 riders. Whoever has 15,000 riders first wins. I am not losing. I will eventually win, because all I have to do is live longer than the rest of y'all, and y'all will die, and I'll be in the business still. We'll be all right. I'll be the winner. Like, I would just tell myself stuff like that, just thinking more long term. I just moved the timeline. Didn't happen fast enough. I just add some more time to it. It'll be all right.
That's beautiful, man. I think that's such an important thing, because it's easy to get tied up in comparison, and you start trying to run the race that somebody else was running, but you might have had a different starting line. Like for me, when I got in the business, I had different struggles and challenges because I was different. Like, my mindset was different than somebody else's mindset. Things that I had to get rid of and I had to excavate and deal with were different than somebody else's, whether it was a lack mindset, blaming, maybe that was coachability and this person isn't coach. Everybody comes from it starts with something different. And I think that for me, those processes of enduring, of struggle, like, life kind of gave me circumstances, situations, hardships, struggles, setbacks that would kind of reveal what I needed to get rid of, what was holding me back. And so those are the opportunities where if I saw them and I was looking at this is happening for me, I would identify that this is why I'm dealing with these things. This is why I had 9 no-shows because I got to excavate this process of just me thinking I'm checking the box like I'm working a job. Like, no, I'm head faking myself booking these fake appointments. So how can I, just different things like that. Like if I just work the hours, I'm good. And I do, everybody's got different stuff. And I think that's such an important thing,
Right.
So, but I wanted to touch upon that because you said it, and I think it's such a big deal, Trey. Like that's a thing that messes a lot of people up. And the whole time they're not happy for others because they're comparing themselves so they feel inadequate when they look at others, opposed to inspired by others, knowing that, hey, I'm going to be able to get there too. My process might look different, but the expectation of me getting there, I'm definitely going to get there because there's no prerequisites. And then celebrating, you get more what you celebrate. That's such a great thing. And I think that's something that it's a self-reflection question. Like, I wonder if there's anybody on here, if ask yourself, when you see the leaderboard, when you see somebody go up that's started when you started and they're further ahead, deep down, are you like, man, I'm not that good, and screw them? Do you think that, or do you think like, good for them? Because I'm telling you, that thought is foundational to lead to you getting what you're celebrating. Mm-hmm. And I think that's great, man.
So this is sort of way too transparent, but if you look back over the time before I even came to FFL, I had like this wreckage in my past of like getting hyper emotional over things and just like throwing temper tantrums and messing everything up. So I learned different coping skills to not do that over time. And I think that was one of the very first ones that I learned. Like, it's hard to be a jealous, obnoxious jerk when you're genuinely trying to celebrate other people's success. And the other thing I learned to do, because I used to work at a gym. I know, this is a whole nother story. But at the gym, the manager, he calls me in one time and he promotes this other guy to the manager position over me. And I lost it. I mean, I almost punched the guy in the face. I mean, they almost had to call the cops.
I've seen you fired up, bro.
So it really upset me. And I thought, why did I do that? And then he sat me down. He stayed calm, and he changed my life when he said this. And he goes, we just got to work on your conflict resolution skills. And then he gave me some pointers on how to deal with stuff. He goes, you let stuff just build up too much, man. You got to learn how to just talk about it and get it off your chest without complaining and move on. And then I just started trying to develop the skill to do that. And fortunately, I mean, being really transparent, working with Andrew, that's the perfect person to be able to let off a little bit of steam, not get it hyper emotional, and move on, because he won't get emotional back.
Right.
So even if I have a minor temper tantrum for 27 seconds, we just move on.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Hopefully that helps somebody.
That definitely does, man. So if we're talking, I mean, a lot of what we're discussing is kind of the attitude, the mindset. And I think that one of the things that can mess up attitude is like being offended. I think that's something that a lot of agents, I know everybody struggles with in some regard. Like, how do you like look at things in such a way where you don't get offended? Like, cause I used to get offended by clients. If they said no, man, I was offended. Like, what do you mean no? What are you talking about? No. Like, you don't see your kid. And like there's different things where that could show up. But I do believe that taking an offense, because that's a choice to take an offense. Somebody can say something offensive, but the person has the choice to be offended by what was, possibly offensive. So how important is that? And have you seen yourself develop and grow in that source? Because I think it's very important. I know I've seen myself in a lot of different areas be able to deal with things that I could have seen in a way and took offense, but that really messes up your attitude when you do it.
Right. Well, dude, that's been probably the biggest area of growth since I've been here. Like, I made up my mind when I got to Family First Life that I wasn't going to let a temporary emotion cause me to make a permanent decision to give up.
That's good.
That was the very, like there was one thing I did at the very beginning. I'm not going to throw a temper tantrum and quit over something stupid. And so whenever I would get offended, the very first thing I would ask myself, is there truth in what they're saying? And if there is, I'm glad they brought that up. There's nothing wrong with it. You can't solve a problem if you don't know what it is. So people have blind spots. So maybe they're just alerting me to my blind spot. And so I would take that in. The other question I would ask myself is, what's it got to do with me? So what? Like, I could get offended by things, and then the question I would ask is like, so what? What's it got to do with me? No big deal. That's somebody's opinion. And I would just learn to just shake stuff off. But that wasn't natural. That was something I had to learn over time. And really, you learn in anything in the business. And you say, well, what's that have to do with insurance? Well, even in the home, like you'll push somebody to the point where like they're just saying no because you've offended them and they've offended you. And then it's like, you're not going to hug their leg and make them do it. Let's just not mess up your chi and go to the next one. Obviously I messed it up, Bob. Have a good day. And then just leave. Is there anything I can help you with before I go? And, and dude, running appointments is the greatest laboratory for developing emotional intelligence that there is, because you get so many chances a week to like test your ability to like shake it off and get better,
Oh, dude, that's so good. I think that's such a big point what you made, Trey. What does it matter?
Right.
Like when something happens, like what does it matter? In the scope, the long term of me getting to this business I want to build, what does this one appointment matter?
Right.
What does this agent that didn't treat me right matter? What does this client that said no matter? What does the 5 hangups matter? What does it matter in the perspective of the big picture? And I think I heard you say that a long time ago, and I've really internalized that. Like, don't make long-term decisions on a short-term feeling and emotion. That's such a big thing, because that can show up if you're brand new today. That it first shows its face when you have your first 7 leads you call not pick up, and then the next 4 hang up, and you start thinking,
these leads suck,
man. These instants. Like, well, it's just a series of sequence of results. Meaning that, and the funny thing is, Trey, if you had 50 of those, you're gonna have probably 20 don't pick up, 15 say no or whatever. You just had those happen in the beginning, but you emotionally react, get offended, and you screw up the ones that you were going to book because your state of emotion is causing you to get more of what you've already tried to make a decision on, which is these ain't any good. And that's why we give another agent the same batch and they kill it on them, right?
Yeah, every time.
So you just have to kind of keep your mind focused on the truth, which is people send in a form, they all need help. It's the most important thing we can sell, regardless if they say no or say, I just need to get through them, because there's definitely yeses in there. These are all great leads. And that's why you have some agents that they're convinced that one lead type is like so good, and another one's not as good, and another agent would have the complete vice versa perspective.
Right.
All the time.
All the time.
Why is that? It's because of this, right?
Yep, that's it.
Did you think? Like, they make a long-term decision off of the
if first 10
their
dials.
sequence was, it's like you're doing the stock market and it drops 10%. You're this stock market don't work. No, it was just a bad sequence. It was the first month.
Yeah, we're managing our sequence of returns risk.
There you go.
In the business, and that's a good. Hey, we made a good analogy right there.
I like that, man.
But it is really interesting, because you get people that, and if you want to be the type of agent that everybody wants to work with, like, you should ask yourself that. Like, if every time you call the person that hired you and they don't answer, it's because you bother them, right? Like, I did my best ever to bother you, so I call you and answer. And my goal was, I don't even know if this is too much to say this, but I never wanted to be a thorn in your guys' side and complain to you about stupid stuff, because I knew what a drain that could be. So ask yourself that question before you complain about the leads. Like, what did I really do? How many did I really call? If it's working for somebody else, why is it not working for me? Do I really need to go complain to somebody else about it and rain on their parade? Because anyway, you see what I'm getting
think
at.
about. So to develop like a good attitude, I think that what I've witnessed from you, Trey, is you've always kind of demonstrated like good positive speech. Like, even when there was something that you needed to address that could be holding you back, whether that was in the field or whatever, like, I need to get my close ratio better, whatever that could be, it was always packaged in responsibility, accountability, like, this is what I'm seeing, and this is what I'm witnessing. How can I tweak this and adjust it? It wasn't, well, the clients or this or that. It was never packaged in blaming, justifying, complaining. And I see you work with your agents, and your speech is always so positive. It's never like getting in the weeds, negative. How important is that, having that positive speech? And the other thing I'd say is this, man. I remember being in the office, and I can't remember what day it was, and you were over there dialing. You just got started, and you were talking to yourself out loud. And that was the day I was like, I like this guy a lot, because you had got, like, I don't know if you got hung up on like 4 or 5 times, but you're like, that's all right. they sent the form back in and they need the help and it's going to be good. It's going to be, and then you're saying this out. And I even said, I didn't know because you're way on the other side. I said, Trey, who are you talking over there? Oh, myself. I'm just talking to myself. But I was like, that's good. And everybody's talking to themselves all day long. But what are you saying? And I was able to hear what you were saying. And it was, you're correcting your attitude with what you were saying out of your mouth. Can you kind of talk about that, man? Because you've always been great at that.
Well, I didn't know anybody else could hear me. And I actually may not have even known I was doing that out loud. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm a big believer that, you bring about what you think about. And you can, in this business, you can literally speak momentum into existence. Like we could do a whole course on how to create momentum. The way you create momentum in your team is you just spread a lot of positive gossip. Like if I hire Mike and Mike hires Bob and Bob hires Joe, and I get on the phone with Joe and I like Joe, then the next thing I do is I call Bob and I tell Bob how much I like Joe. And then I get on the phone with Mike and I go, oh my God, Mike, we're all going to be rich because you got Bob and Joe. This is unbelievable. Bob was on the phone yesterday. He booked 11 appointments in 4 hours. He was working 17-year-old leads and didn't even know it. It's unbelievable what he's going to do. Like, this guy's going to kill it. Whatever you did to find him, go find some more. Man, I'm fired up. And then I would go get on the phone. It's like, when's the best time to hire? The best time to hire is in between appointments.
Yep.
Because if you didn't sell it, you got to bring yourself up to talk to somebody, which brings you up so you're ready for the next one. And if you did sell it, you made $1,800 in 45 minutes. It's the best time to talk to new agents,
No doubt.
And so that was a lot of it. I just try to make sure that I'm spreading a positive vibe to folks. Have you
seen people that they don't spread like positive, like their vocabulary, what they say, and the negative effects that's had on the groups, like, or on their team or what have you? Can you give an example or speak to that at all?
Well, absolutely I can, because I see people that hire really good agents. And because they've had a bad experience, they'll poison them and they don't even realize it. Like I never overthought the fact that I could actually hire people that were better at it than me. And if they were, that's what I wanted. Like I wouldn't be offended by it. Like if I hire Bob and Bob can kill it on a lead source that I didn't think was good, great job. I'm not trying to mess up Bob's mindset on the lead source, but people take it too personal. They're like, well, he just got lucky. That must have been what it was. He got the good ones. Just wait. Like I see people like bite off their nose to spite their face because they're jealous. And, I try to stay super conscious about it really more than anything else. Cause I've seen people just totally kill all the momentum in their business because they can't figure out why this agent can do it and they can't. My whole thing is like, you never know what people's true skill is. That's why, like, ride-alongs. Okay, I'm going a lot of tangents here. But the reason why I would never take people in the field on ride-alongs is because they could be better at it than I am, and I would overcomplicate it and make them not as good. Like, I took Elaine Flinchbaugh on one ride-along, and I didn't sell it. And she almost quit the business over it. And I go, I'm so sorry. Just get rid of that. Don't ever think about that again and go do what you're going to do. And she sold like 10 in a row.
That's great.
And so that's the mindset I always had is like, sometimes you're going to find people that are better at it and that's okay. And just keep it moving.
Yeah, I've seen like when an agent calls and says like, man, these leads ain't any good, right? Because they had a bad series. And then yet there's 300 people in the company that wrote over 40,000 last month just off those leads,
Right.
Instead of them going back to that, they'll say, you know what, why don't you try this lead? Like by doing that, they're validating something that's not true, which causes a person to never take responsibility and really not have their hands on something that they should be controlling. Because they can't control that lead source, but they can control their way they handle that. And I think that's such a big deal. And, talk about the trade, like when it comes to having this attitude where you only focus on things you can control. I know it's easy to get on things that you can't control and put focus and energy on those, which just kind of makes those things out of your control bigger, magnified, and multiply, which just causes this compound effect of bad attitude, which Sean said it from day one. This business is attitude and activity. And man, I mean, that's it. Like we could start a podcast, say attitude activity. cut.
That's it.
Now there's some depth to unpack it, which is what we're doing here. But I mean, attitude's such a big deal in this business. Can you kind of talk about like, in your this business that you've grown, because now you guys are doing, man, like $3 million a month, which is phenomenal, man. $3 million a month. Think about it, like you'll be doing like 50-60 million in paid business in a year, which is not. And I know, and this is the thing I love about you, Trey, and leaders of the company. Like the number's great, but it's so great because of the amount of families that number reflects, the impact that they've had. God, that's why it's so good.
Yeah.
The amount of people you can say, look at this person, look at that person, and just think about it. If you're not going back to like communicating positively, like you're hurting people, because there's so much positive. This isn't like, man, I've been trying to find something, I've been digging. Like, no, that's everywhere. There's so many people wanting to succeed, which makes up that 3 million in paid business, which is why it's such a proud, good feeling that you get. But it is an incredible feat that you've done by going out and working day in, day out. Having your eyes in your hands on the things that you can control. Can you kind of talk about the things that you can control that matter most, and maybe some of the things that you couldn't control that kind of try to creep in as far as your mindset and attitude that it was hard to not focus on?
Yeah. I think just understanding that the results in the business actually come last. The results come last. Like, you measure your success in the business based off your work ethic. Like, one of the things that I always got confused about, and you'll remember this meeting, because you guys had been in insurance. You and Andrew had been in insurance for a while when I first met you, and you had honed a skill of selling at a high level already by the time I met you. And back then, we didn't have any leads. We didn't have all these instant leads and stuff. And so you would go out and run 15, 18 appointments because you were trying to take those extra leads and make sure that the people on your team had stuff to run. So you could go out in 2 days, 3 days a week, and write $500,000 a year. Well, when I first started, I tried to match that schedule, but the results came last. What I didn't realize was all the work and effort and time. If I would have just compressed that time frame and run 5 days a week, the result would have come much quicker, that I could get to a $10,000 a week run rate, And we were at this meeting, and Sean goes, Trey, when you start out an agent, how many days a week do you tell them to run? And I go, 2. And he goes, no, that's stupid. They don't have any money. When you don't have any money, you run every day. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And I was like, and this is the first time he ever chewed me out. It was in front of everybody. And I'm like, wow, I never thought of it that way. That's right. They don't have any money. They should run every day. Like, why would they run 2? And so that was one of the things I realized that you can control. You can control your activity. And I would get confused early on. Like, is it the amount of appointments I set? Is it the amount of like AP? If I have this much AP by this day, do I just take the rest of the week off? Like, I would come to all these crazy, weird ideas. And what Sean would always bring it back to is just work 40 hours a week. Why don't we start with that? You're working 12 hours a week. Let's just move it up to 40 and focus on the activities that actually make you money. Because that's what you can control. And if you do it long enough, eventually you get the results. Like, if you're not happy with the results, then you need to take a step back and you need to look at, the activity that you're putting in. And if you're not happy with the activity, you need to take a step back and take a look at your attitude, And if that's not getting you there, you need to take a look back and actually look at your philosophy about work and how much is too much, and whether you're doing this for you or you're doing it for other people, or the actual foundational philosophies that get you to move. And I had some really messed up ones early on that I had to get over. And Sean might help me get over. The biggest one was about money. Like, I thought it was bad to have money, because every person I'd ever met that had a bunch of money, I didn't like them. They were actually kind of bad people, to be honest, in my experience up until that point. And I met Sean. I was like, Sean's not a bad person. You can give him a whole bunch of money. He'd still be the most generous person I ever met. He was generous when he didn't have any money. Most generous person I ever met when he had a bunch. And he gets me, on the side on this call, and he just says, hey, I don't care about money either. You're not doing this for the money. You're doing it for your family and what it can do for your family. And I'm like, oh, that's an option. I can think of it like that, and totally just changed my mindset about money. That was something I had to get over. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It does, man. I think that's so good. Like, and that's a whole letting the process kind of do its work, because that was a belief, a philosophy that you had coming into the business that would have always kept you from achieving what you've achieved. And obviously now in hindsight, when you look at the philosophy that you now have, which is doing it for your family and then the families that you've helped, like if you would have kept that philosophy, think about all these people on your team. I mean, we can name them all. There's so many people
There's so many
that their life is forever different financially because you were able to go out there and get past that and develop a new philosophy. But everybody has that. What you start with is not what you're stuck with unless you don't take a look out and interrogate the reality and look in the mirror and say, hey, is this what I should be continuously working from? And you have to expose yourself to different perspectives and thought processes and patterns, and that comes from hopping on these different podcasts and things like that. It goes back to when I was talking, I think, on your podcast about how we got started, and me and Andrew would split a hotel and drive 2 hours to meet in the middle to save $14.99. Like, what?
Right.
Like, I think about that and I want to punch myself in the face. Like, how did you think that? But my philosophy was like, man, if I could just save my way to success, and saving $14 is a part of saving more, it made no sense. But at the time, it made all the sense because of how I was raised and how my thoughts were developed from who I was around and who I listened to and the voice. But as I started to develop and get around, if you would have came and told me that right away, I still would have been like, yeah, I don't know. But I had to hear it enough times from the right people, credible, that I was like, that does make, and I let that go. But the thing is people come on, Trey, and they can look at like Andrew now, the offices he's opening up on all these different things. They come here, they think like, man, you just take all this risk. Like, I don't know if I could ever do that. Like, that's crazy. But you don't know like where it started.
Right.
That process had to be had. But you have to position yourself to be able to have your ears, eyes, and mouth positioned to be able to consume different things. And I think that's such an important thing, Trey, as we wrap up, I had one other question I have, because you're so good at this, man. Like, when I talk to you, I feel better about myself. Like, I just feel like I feel like I could do more. I feel like I'm worth more. I just feel better about who I am. And I see you work with people, and they feel like that. Like, I think when they get off the phone with you, they don't think like, well, it was me, or man, maybe I ain't cut out for this. I'm not good enough. I think they leave and they feel empowered. Like, they feel better about themselves. And I think that serves them immensely. And better about themselves doesn't mean like you just tell them how pretty they are. Sometimes that's very much a very direct conversation and packaged in love and in truth. So that way they leave and think like, man, he really cared to tell me about those things. And I feel encouraged and better about myself because now I'm more aware of things I needed to change, because now that I hear them, I see it, and now I see it, I want to do something about it, and but I see that in you, and I think that serves your attitude well as well. Like, you feel better about yourself when you help others feel better about themselves. Like, we're called, and I'm not, but we're called to love others, right? Mm-hmm. We're called to love others and serve others and help others, but talk about that, man. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you develop that? I know it's a heart thing, but how has that served you well, you think, in building a business?
Well, the thing that I'm always mindful of with people is that nobody can account for momentum in getting better. Like, everybody wants to quantify this thing. And when I talk to folks, what I'm trying to get them to understand is, like, I'll believe in you so much that you can borrow it until you believe in yourself, because people have done that for me. And that's all I'm trying to do. I believe that belief enables action. So if somebody's stuck somewhere or they're confused, if I can just work on their heart and get them to believe that they can do it, that they can actually do it. And I believe everybody can do it. I know I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I know that I have the best intentions. Most of the time, I'm human just like anybody else. But I'm asking myself on a regular basis, like, what could I do to esteem them higher than myself and put other people first? Because there's two ways you could do this. I think if you look at anybody that's been successful at building an agency, they really have three things in common. They have a strong work ethic, they're not afraid to invest money, and then they genuinely are selfless. They really want other people to win. And I just try to embody that as much as possible, and so that people can, I try to have an unimpeachable approach to things where somebody can never look back and say, I would have succeeded if Trey didn't do this. Like, I want to make sure if somebody succeeds, it's because of them. If they fail, it's because of them. But I don't ever want to put myself in a position where they can legitimately blame me for their failure. So the thing that'll motivate me more than just about anything else, because I don't, if my phone rings and it's a new agent and I know they're trying to get going, I'll answer it because I don't want to be the reason why they didn't make it. I don't want to let anybody down. It's really probably, I think, what it comes down to more than anything.
Well, I've seen that in you over the years, man. Like the biggest team player. In fact, you were Family First Life team player, I think 2 years ago, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and it justified. Dude, you've always been a team player. You've always wanted to go out there and give it your best for the betterment of the team, and I've seen that. Where it's like, man, Trey's doing this and he's sacrificing this and he's giving here, and you just don't want the team down. And I think there's a lot to be said by that. The person that puts others first and they realize that this is a big team. I had an agent the other day say, man, Paul, why do you take all of these calls from different teams and managers that are not a part of your group? That's like, when the staff said, you spend more time, it seems like, with them than you do agents in the group. It's like, well, I mean, we're all one team. And
right.
And I'm just honored to be able to do whatever I can to help in any area. I've screwed this thing up for 14 years. I've learned a lot of things that what not to do and how to do it. And if I can help, and I want to help. But it's this whole, we're all one team. And the whole rising tide raises all ships, like that's a real concept. And I think that that's one of those foundational things that Sean put in place, one of those DNA things early on that we're all living now, where if you got any haughtiness, if you got ego, like, man, it's just, you're not going to fit in real well. You better conform to humility, or you're going to feel really out of sorts, because our body is going to reject that like a virus, and you'll be kicked out. And that's just a thing
That's
he
right.
set up. And I think that's probably one of the first steps in like serving other people is knowing that anybody can do this. You're nothing special. And so if that's the case, and I can talk to them like, they can have a shot too. Why would I not serve them? I'm not, special. And I think that's such a big deal. And that shows up in all different areas. Whether that's if you're in the field sitting with clients, you're like, man, I'm nervous. Well, that's because you're worried about what what you're going to look like if you don't help them, or if it doesn't work. And that's an ego thing. It's you seeing what you're going to look like, perceiving the person you could be like if this doesn't work out. And that's an ego thing. It's about them. Help them. Serve the agents. And I think that's such a big deal, man. But I'll tell you what, dude, I really do appreciate you being on today. I think this served me well. I'm like, this is good. I'm going to watch this a couple times and make sure I got my pen and paper out so I can take some notes while I'm talking to you. But, man, it was so good, dude. Thank you for joining, guys. Let's go out there and crush the week. Take these things and put them into practice. This game is mental. The mechanics are all laid out. All the what to do and how to do it, it's all played out. But why are you doing this thing? What's your why? What's your motivating factor? Where's your attitude out? How are you protecting it? Are you going back to your why when things take place and building your attitude to get to these other levels? Or are you succumbing to the experiences that you're currently in and not expanding where you're going to go based off your mindset? And so let's attack this thing, make it a big week. Stay strong, be steadfast, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Trey.
Thanks.
Hey guys, hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast. And now you know what time it is. We're going to give away some leads, $250 in leads to be exact. How do you win those $250? All you got to do is leave a comment on the video from the previous week, and then we choose them at the end of every Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast thereafter. So if you want to win $250 in leads next week, leave a comment down below, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that to be entered to win $250 worth of leads. It's a quarter of your weekly leads right there. I'm going to click this button behind me, and then whoever it lands on, get in contact with Victoria Serrano. Her number is going to be down here. Get in contact with her, and then she'll set you up with those leads. But without further ado, let's get to it. We got Kayla Vasquez. Oh my God, Kayla, what's up, dude? So good. Thank you for your advice, and I'm ready to keep my mind right and not give up. Awesome, Kayla. Congratulations on winning $250 in leads. Get in contact with Victoria, and guys, it's that easy. Leave a comment, win $250 worth of leads. Blow your business up. It's great. Anyways, catch you guys next week. We'll see you later.